Welcome everyone today to the next webinar in our series of webinars that we're doing throughout 2017. FYI, this will be recorded and you'll receive a follow-up email with a link to where you can access the recording and all the insights shared by Rieben today. To get started, thank you again for joining us. We appreciate and value your time. First, I will tell you a little bit about us, what we do, what we'll be talking about, and then a little bit about our expert who will be walking us through getting to rank 0, beating your competition with featured snippets. I'm really excited about this webinar and this topic today. Now, we are 97th Floor. We're an award-winning digital marketing agency. We work with clients in the enterprise as well as small, medium business sectors and across a variety of industries, as you can see. We are a collection of strategists and we provide a range of full-service capabilities. Essentially everything required to create and execute strategies that produce bottom-line results, from organic SEO, PPC, design and development, to copywriting and video production. Now in today's webinar, we're talking about rank 0, or otherwise known as featured snippets or the answer box. Most people know what they are, but maybe they don't know what they're called. But most people don't know. I'll give you a little example. This is probably what you've seen, even if you didn't know what it was. This is what we call rank 0, featured snippets, the answered box. It's everything that shows up before you get to rank 1 on your search engine results page. Most people don't know that just like ranks 1 through a million, you can capture this spot, and it's all part of the Google algorithm. And today, Cole is going to be walking you through how to get your content to show up above your competition. You know, if they've been capturing spots 1 through 5 or just spot 1 and you're hanging out in spot 2, this is the way to get your content showing up above your competition by capturing those coveted rank 0 spots. Now, what it's not, I like to tell everyone what we're not going to be discussing today is it's not a tutorial on keyword rankings. It's also not a tutorial on content creation and tracking or link building per se. And for that, we have loads of other content on our blog and in subsequent webinars in this series. And of course, there's a lot of resources that you can find. But first stop, if you were looking for tutorials on that, would be 97thfloor.com/blog. And we've conducted a lot of blog posts and webinars on that specifically. So today, I do want you to focus on strategies and not so much on specifics. Cole's going to give you a number of specifics, but because you'll be receiving this after, this is something where you can refer back to. So don't, if you find yourself getting overwhelmed by specifics, just focus on the strategies. What Cole's going to be sharing with you is an opportunity to know how to fit this into your overall content marketing strategy and SEO strategy, and that is what you want to start developing the discernment for before you worry about specifically how you're going to do it for your own company or own business and products. Now let me tell you a little bit about Cole Rieben. Cole Rieben is an enterprise campaign manager, and he oversees a team of marketers, content managers, designers, and specialists here at 97th Floor. Cole's specialties are technical SEO, content promotion, reputation management, and he has an industry focus mostly on e-commerce. However, the tips and tactics shared today, they're universal. So whether you're small, medium, or enterprise and in the industry, consider this webinar for you. So with that, we're going to turn this over to Cole, and he'll be taking us into getting to rank 0, beating your competition with featured snippets. Just give us 2 seconds to make that transition and turn over presenter rights, and then we'll jump right in.
All right, how's that? Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. Well, like Shante said, first off, I'm excited to talk about featured snippets. I've been looking pretty deep into this rank 0 opportunity for well over a year, and have found that it is a ever-moving atmosphere. There's a lot of changes, and there's actually a lot of recent changes and updates that we'll talk about, and that's something you'll definitely get out of this webinar, is knowing the latest and the greatest, of course. So just to kind of kick things off, I decided to kind of display this, of course, for the search, what is a featured snippet? You'll see a featured snippet answering the question in paragraph form. as it says, it's a summary of an answer to a user's query, which is displayed on top of Google search results. This is a result pulled from Search Engine Watch. I'm sure there's other results that might have come into the mix for answering this. Featured snippets are coming into search a lot more over time. Last year to this year, there was an enormous growth from a lot of studies we've seen and been part of. 4 times the SERPs have seen featured snippet from last year to this year. 4 times the actual normal growth rate from year to year. So we're seeing a lot of growth, but we're seeing a lot of rapid growth recently. But with that being said, there is still an enormous amount of SERPs that still don't have a featured snippet. We're looking at around 40% of SERPs today have a featured snippet. The majority of them are related to question type of queries, but there's still a vast majority that are not just questions. They're they're queries about costs. There are all sorts of different types of queries. So if you limit yourself to just searches about questions, you're going to be limiting the amount of opportunities that you find for ranking in a featured snippet position. Of all of those, paragraphs are definitely the most popular type of featured snippet. You'll see those quick answer boxes, but there are definitely other types, and we'll go into those in a little bit. So I like to read and watch movies about Everest and climbers. There's just something that's so motivating about, and I myself am not a climber, so I don't have that experience, but those who tackle such a great feat are super motivating to me, and I actually find a lot of comparisons between climbing the peak of the tallest mountain in the world and trying to climb the peak of a SERP. Today, that peak, that summit, is position 0. It wasn't always that way. You know, you get to position 1, you're at the top for organic results. But now there's a new summit, and so there needs to be new strategies. And, as Shantae was saying earlier, the featured snippets is just a piece of the puzzle, but it's a very valuable piece, and it provides some new opportunities that a lot of people are not taking advantage of. And when I go in and do competitive research, that's the first place I look now, because so many people are not taking advantage of those featured snippets that you can climb over different competitors a lot more rapidly. Looking at this picture, you can see the summit, and you can also see the main route up to the summit. Now, usually for a climb, and there's only certain seasons, certain times of the year that these excursions can happen because of bad weather, but nobody just walks up to base camp and then says, tomorrow I'm going to summit Mount Everest. It's a multiple day, multiple week, humongous journey to get acclimated to the high atmosphere and lower amounts of oxygen. You actually need to ascend and descend multiple times at different areas and get to a new benchmark each time. I know some, on average, a lot of routes, you start from base camp, you go up to camp 1, you come back down to base camp. You may do that a couple times until you feel ready so that you don't get sick. And then you might go to base camp 2 and then back down to base camp 1 and then back down to, camp 2 and then camp 1 and then back down to base camp. And you may do that a few times before you make it to camp 3. But so it's a progression, and you don't always stay at that accelerated or higher point and then achieve the next one. Sometimes you have to drop down and aid that getting used to the thin air. At a certain point, you've made it to the final camp before the summit, and you may have reached that camp multiple times before summiting. But the way that a lot of groups go up these days, they try to open up the opportunities to summit multiple times because there might be bad weather or it might take you longer to get used to the thin air. So along the same lines with ranking on SERPs, it's the same type of strategy. I don't approach a client and say, hey, tomorrow you're going to be in position 1 because of all of these wonderful tactics, but I let them know that you might see position 3, but then you might bounce back down to position 4 for a little bit as Google's really trying to verify the value of your content on your page. And obviously our goal is to summit. What's great about featured snippets is, like I said, that new summit is rank 0. And how cool would it be if you could just skip multiple camps, camp 3 or camp 2, all the camps all together, and just run right up to that summit. Even if it takes a little bit longer, that you're not taking as long as you were if you were going to each camp and really trying to acclimate yourself. And there are people who've done it on Everest. There's people who have hiked without oxygen. There's those who've summited and done it a lot faster than others. This is a great opportunity that's happening in search that we can take advantage of. You can have a competitor that has been beating you in rankings organically for years, and all of a sudden there's a featured snippet opportunity, and your content might already be more valuable than or answer a question better than your competitor, and you grab that featured snippet spot. We found that the vast majority of featured snippets are pulled from the top 10 results, so results on the first page, but there is still about a 10% that spans over the next 100 results, so that it's still possible to rank in the featured snippet if you're not on the first page. It's just very unlikely. But what that tells you is in your research, you should definitely be on the first page or start with opportunities on the first page, and we'll go into that in a little bit. In the world today, we have voice search, voice automation. All of that is, taking over. I can say, "Okay, Google," and have my temperature change. Voice in search is a huge update that is affecting featured snippets, knowledge graph, and other forms of search. And along with that, Hummingbird is a huge part of all of these updates, and semantic search as well. Knowing that people are searching a lot with question bases, and even if they're not asking questions, because of semantic intelligence and in semantic search, we are having queries or results pop up for non-question queries that are answering a question because it is very similar to, or the Google is recommending that, this piece of content is going to fit what you're searching for. So going into types of featured snippets, this is important to know because you're not just going to blanket optimize all of your pages on your website for paragraph featured snippet. There's going to be different types of featured snippets that show up in the search engine result pages for a variety of different queries that your pages show up for. So we're going to talk about those types. The first type I want to talk about are lists. And these aren't in any, obviously you can see from the graph, paragraphs are definitely vastly more popular across the board for featured snippets. But lists are probably what people recognize the most or remember the most when you need instructions or you need a recipe, something that's listed out that you could probably, for the most part, just look right from the Google result page and decipher it and accomplish. What's great about these, you'd think that, and I think the misconception overall is that these featured snippets take away from click-through rates. As you can see in this example of how to make slime, and I just had looked this up at one point for the kids, it is apparent that there's more instructions still to come that are not displayed in the results. So we do know that you should have 8 lines or more in your list or your recipe or your your instructions. That way, it will truncate and you will solicit a click because somebody wants to continue learning about how to make slime or how to bake cookies, chocolate chip cookies, or whatever it might be. So keep that in mind. I'll touch on that a little bit throughout this presentation, but with lists specifically, optimization, huge optimization factor is making your list long enough so that you entice click-throughs. You don't want to get everything just in 4 simple lines and have people just stop right there at the impression. Going to the next type, paragraphs, and then I also added images. Paragraphs are the most popular, like I said. When you haven't seen a featured snippet show up for a query and all of a sudden it shows up, you'll see that Google actually will pull what they deem valuable information on the page, not necessarily a meta description or something that you had marked up, but they'll pull something that's valuable, that they deem valuable, that have relations to engagement on your website, staying on your website, and they will display that in the featured snippet for paragraphs. Now, more recently, we've noticed that Google is also pulling, they used to just pull the image if there was one associated with a certain paragraph on a web page, but now you'll see that some images from a different result will show up in this featured snippet than the one that's being recommended for the content. So this also plays to optimizing your images using alt tags and having valuable content associated with those images that are related to the queries that have featured snippets, so that you may not have the paragraph or the list like you see off here in this slide, but you do have the image and it's a start. So you're starting to compete at that point, really. Next, and the last one I'll really touch on is tables. So tables you'll see mostly in a comparison format. You'll see price comparisons, you'll see specs that are compared, maybe it's software or another type of service or product across the board. It could be insurance rates, stuff like that. But tables are the least common amongst the research, but are probably the one that most people optimize for the most off-page or on-page. So this is a chance to maybe do a little bit more markup. It's not something you want to depend on, but the most of the results that show up in the table featured snippet tend to have some type of markup declaring that it's a table. So talked about types of featured snippets, the most common ones, but a question may still remain: why should I change my current strategy or make my strategy more robust to fit in a featured snippet strategy? And for some, this may be obvious. For those who aren't as familiar with featured snippets, I just kind of wanted to go through this before we go into optimizing for them. So here's a list. The number one and more obvious one is more traffic, and I didn't add that to this list, but what good is more traffic if it's not converting? So I wanted to throw conversion rates or a click-through rate on number one on this list. A lot of people, like I said before, assumed at the beginning that Google was just taking more clicks from results, and in some cases they may, because it could be optimized better for conversions, or for click-throughs. But in this case, in most cases, what we've seen and what we've seen from other studies is that click-through rates actually have improved, and I'll speak more to that in just a sec. Have more SERP visibility, so you're in more results, you are higher. If you're optimizing for featured snippets, that means you're also optimizing for the SERP itself and have a chance of climbing in the ranks the slower way. With the Everest analogy, you're climbing different camps. ascending and descending, but you're getting to the point, maybe the slower way or the more the longer practice way of getting to the top of a number one result, organic result. But yeah, the more you optimize for featured snippets, the more visible you'll be in the queries that you rank for, and it'll help you optimize for queries you might not already rank on the first page for. Brand awareness, this is a more obvious one, but it's another chance using images and other brand usages, associations in your text to really spread that brand awareness and what you want people to recognize your brand for. And then the one that is the most important and kind of the most appealing to others is beat out higher ranking competitors, those competitors that you've been dealing with for a long time that just seem to, over time, they've been there longer and just consistently hold that higher ranking from you. It is a great chance to beat them out because you're updating your content more. So just on a quick note for the sessions, increases what you see from featured snippets. We've seen with many clients, and I just kind of pulled one that a client had worked on for a long time. When we first discovered that they had a featured snippet, we made a lot of changes and kind of tried to figure out what users are really trying to get to with, or trying to figure out with the page we were trying to optimize for. We're really trying to get down to the bottom of what kind of questions are being asked, what is Google really preferring when it comes to a few of these header key terms and what people are looking for. It took us a while to kind of figure it out. Once we did, we made optimizations. As you can see, the peak here is towards the end of June in 2016. Before that, we were capturing some featured snippets, some question featured snippets that had lower search volume. We were answering a lot of questions on this page that a lot of people were finding useful, but there was a header key term that we were really trying to optimize for that had a quick answer box. And literally the week that we hit that, we were down at 9 or 10 when we first had started making these optimizations for this specific header key term. And once we got to about position 6, we actually jumped all the way up to a featured snippet. And that's where you see the traffic growth. Now, we did not have it for very long. We had it for about a week, and then you start to see the traffic dive some more. And you see it gradually dive as we were not able to get it again. We made multiple changes, and I want to show this because we've seen lots of successes where we've maintained and that featured snippet, that rank 0 position. But then there's other times where we've lost it. It's a clear evidence that there was a lot of traffic coming to it. And we also saw a correlation in conversion rates or in click-throughs. People were actually coming and engaging with not just that page, but other pages. So, from what we've seen from the studies that we've done, we've easily seen a correlation with sessions and increases in organic sessions due to getting a featured snippet. Click-through rate, though, like I said, what's good is that traffic increase if we're not getting more click-throughs and improving our conversion rates. This is a study that I like to refer to a lot. I've done it in blog posts before. Ben Goodsell shared this on Search Engine Land, and it's a case study where they optimized their content to answer questions specifically, and it led to an increase in traffic of 516%. That's what you see there at the top, and it's broken down by different, by mobile, desktop, and tablet. But at the bottom there, you'll see also they saw a conversion rate increase after they made these optimizations and captured featured snippets for certain questions. They went from a 2% to an 8% click-through rate, which is humongous, and obviously led to great increases in revenue. So, so that whole myth of featured snippets taking away from click-through rates. It's not so, and there's certain things you can do to optimize to better prepare for having a good click-through rate. Like I was talking about before with brand awareness, what's great about these features, one of the great features here is taking buyers to the buyer's journey. Now you have an awareness stage that you could have different feature snippets display where it might be a product or brand level awareness type featured snippets. You've got, and that could be in the form of paragraph or list as well. In the consideration stage, you may see more lists or comparison tables and find opportunities that way. And then in the decision stage, you'll see you can optimize your featured snippet type of content, those pages for conversions, and making sure that, you know, for lists, you've got eight or more lines, so that people are enticed to click through and get all of the information they need, or get all of the direction they need to do a download. In the decision stage, also, you'll see downloads directly in a featured snippet. If you put in a product specifically, there are featured snippets that come up for certain iOS downloads or Android downloads or different things like that. So boosting that brand awareness, taking people to the buyer's journey is another good benefit from the featured snippets. Now, beating out higher ranking competitors, as you can see in this example, I just did a search for average mortgage rate, and you'll see on the left-hand side a SERP where the mortgagecalculator.org is at the bottom of this. It's about result 4, and yet it does have the featured snippet. So they're not ranking 1, 2, or 3, it's ranking 4, and that may have been the case for since they've been adding new content to their site. But the information on their pages engages well and wins out the featured snippet and beats out those 3 competitors above them. So and 2 of the results are the same competitor, but they're different pages. So Bankrate has those 2 results there. I did this from a local search, so you'll see Utah in this. But it's a good example of beating out your competitors that you've been that have been ranking above you for years. Now, what a lot of people ask is, how do I know if I'm even competing? How do I know if I'm in the runnings? And the answer to that before was always, you know, are you on the first page? Pretty much. If you're not on the first page, then maybe it shouldn't be your focus right now. If you're not on the first page for a certain query that has a featured snippet, because the vast majority are pulled from the top 10 results. But there's actually some other ways we can tell that we're competing. So now I have the number 3 here, but the idea is that the snippets that you'll see here in regular search are actually longer than the average 2 lines that you see. And it's a good indication. There's been studies. I know Stone Temple Consulting did a study to look at that they realized that the ones that were competing are all have these longer snippets in search. What this can do, and I've seen SERPs where a featured snippet is showing up in paragraph form that doesn't have 3 or the longer, the higher character count in their snippet in regular search, like you see here below. But in most cases they do, and it's a pretty good indication of whether you're competing for the featured snippet or not. So in this case, we can kind of pretty much assume that that drive a nearly new car page and that the car depreciation page are competing for featured snippet in this SERP. And I cut off the full SERP, all the 10 results, but these were the only ones that actually had longer descriptions or snippets. So it's actually a good indication. And it's a great tool to filter even further your opportunities, because maybe you do have a ton of opportunities, but you want to isolate and prioritize. And so this is a good chance of looking at, okay, which one of my pages shows or does Google prefer a different snippet than what I might put in a meta description, or a longer snippet from my page. And let's go ahead and make some, if I'm not already in the featured snippet, what kind of changes can I make? And they might be very subtle in order for you to capture the featured snippet. You also want to look at what Google is preferring. So and this is pretty obvious, but maybe for a certain search like sales management software, they're preferring a list that may go into different types of software. At some point, maybe it's a table. These change so often, so you have to keep an eye on them, because one day they could be a list, one day they could be a table, and it's important for you to gather that information so you can see what Google is collecting about users. Are they preferring a list? Are they preferring a table? Are they preferring a paragraph? And then you make your optimizations based off that type. And off to the right, you can see, with auto insurance premiums, maybe you would think that it would have a table comparison, but in this case has a paragraph snippet. So definitely identify once you've seen queries that display a featured snippet, that you actually know what type of featured snippet is being preferred. And like I said, make sure you're monitoring even daily, because these change very often. So as far as finding opportunities and finding the SERPs related to the queries that you're trying to rank for, we'll go into this next. So I personally love using Ahrefs for pulling opportunities. I would say early, or I would say even late or mid 2016. Their tool wasn't that great. It wasn't really pulling accurate opportunities. It was more or less showing some details of featured snippets, but it's grown a lot more. And I'm not doing a full tutorial here, but through this screenshot, I want to kind of show you what you can see, or how you can pull opportunities out of Ahrefs, the tool. When you put in a page, and in this case, it could be a competitor, or it could be your page that you're trying to rank for a certain keyword. Maybe you are Capterra and you're trying to rank this page for marketing automation software. You'll want to see what featured snippet opportunities there are for the keywords you're ranking for. You'll go into, on the left-hand side there, you'll see organic keywords is highlighted in orange. That's what you want to click into, so that you'll see what keywords you're ranking for. And then you can go to the options right under organic keywords, where you can see that drop-down menu. And under all features, you can select featured snippet, and this will display which of those keywords that you rank for display some form of featured snippet. And then you can kind of look a little bit further. There, you can actually see the SERP directly from Ahrefs, and decide, what kind of featured snippet it is, and start making your optimizations right away. So Ahrefs is a great tool. It's kind of like a quick and dirty of finding opportunities, and I definitely suggest it, especially if you haven't done any featured snippet optimizations yet, or looked into competitive research. Like I said, you could put competitors in here and kind of pull even more keywords that you might not be ranking for, or that could be very, that might not be very difficult to get to the first page, and find opportunities that way. That's kind of next level, though, once you already find opportunities that are kind of in front of, right under your nose. Other tools, though, Moz does pull featured snippets in their SERP analysis, and they just had an update in their crawler, so you probably will get a lot more up-to-date opportunities showing up in SERPs, in the SERP analysis for the keywords that you put into your program with them. SEMrush has a good tool as well. I've noticed it's kind of hit and miss sometimes on opportunities that it displays, but it's a great mix. If you add multiple tools to your whole strategy, you're going to get a well-rounded list of opportunities. One of the tools I've really liked using for finding featured snippet opportunities is BrightEdge's data cube. And I'm going to kind of go into what I would do with the data cube. And with this, kind of using data cube and Google Sheets, because I like to organize it with competitors and kind of pull, also at the same time, pull keywords that I'm ranking for or clients ranking for on the first page. So I like to use a Google Sheet, and I'll have I have a template that we can in the follow-up definitely include. But in Data Cube, if you're familiar with it, with BrightEdge, this is, looks familiar. If not, it's a pretty decent tool that pulls a lot of information about if you're trying to get keyword level data similar to Ahrefs on your own site, but then also really good at pulling data for competitors. And that's really where its bread and butter is with the Data Cube, is finding competitor information. They've got this easy way, you know, right here I can put in vaporplants.com, and under content strategies, you'll see universal results. And once you click through those universal results, you'll see quick answers. And then you click into quick answers. And here you can see that the Data Cube is pulling that this website, vaporplants.com, the whole domain ranks in, has 12 featured snippets. Now, the crawler is not super fast, so some of these may have already been snatched up by a competitor. So it's worthwhile clicking through, making sure that these are there, but the majority of these will be true. Like I said, with featured snippets and with Google's updates, you're seeing a lot of changes. That means a lot of movement with different competitors, really trying to get a feel for which featured snippets are adding value to Google search. So next, after you've seen the list of featured snippets or quick answers that are won by a competitor, you can just download that list. This is what the template looks like that I upload the download into, and on the template I have a little tutorial on the first tab that explains all the steps of the process. So it's kind of what it looks like. But what you're going to get is each competitor that you plug in, you'll be able to throw into each different tab, and it will populate what the keyword is, you know, what your client's ranking for it. This is basically the end result that you'll get. The page that you or a client has ranking for that keyword, the volume, and then the opportunity or the competitor URL will come right into this. So you'll know who your competitor is, and you'll be able to make notes right off to the side of kind of right off the bat. Maybe you notice that they have a list if you don't have a list. So some things like that. This is more or less what it would look like with this kind of a competitor. Putting in Vaping Insider, you see the keywords off to the left that you rank for in the top 10. And what I had done is filtered these by top 10 results to find the best opportunities. The page column is empty, but that is where it will display on the site that you're trying to get the spot position 0 for. It'll show the corresponding URL that is ranking for the keyword off in column A. You also see search volume, which is kind of arbitrary. Different tools are kind of figuring out the ranges that they're getting from Google. So I wouldn't put all your stock into what the search volume comes from with BrightEdge. Even with other tools, you might need to accumulate multiple tools to really get a better idea of expected search volume for a keyword, but you can still kind of categorize them by priority this way. And then you'll see the competitor URL off in the next column. So that's kind of what it would look like, and that's what the template pulls. You'll have just a long list on the first tab of all the opportunities you should be going for, and you can prioritize it how you want. Now, actually making the optimizations on page. I'll spend some time talking about that as well. going into that. So like I mentioned before, don't depend on structured data. A lot at the beginning, that was kind of the push for how you optimize for these featured snippets is if you have a list, use UL or, use the structured data and markup to be able to let Google know that you're using a list. Now, a vast majority that do show up in lists, they do happen to have that kind of structured data, but we've seen plenty of indication that even if you're using it, you're not going to win the feature snippet depending on that alone. But I still always encourage it. It doesn't hurt and it's clean. So while I say don't depend on it, definitely apply it as part of the optimizations if it's possible. Optimize your H1s, H2s, and H3s. Now, usually what you're used to hearing from an SEO is optimize those H1s for keywords. But in these cases, you'll want to make sure that your H2s and H3s are optimized with keyword phrases, with questions that populate those answers that can show up in the featured snippets, or populate those tables that would show up in the featured snippets. So make sure you're optimizing all of your different title tags, all your different H-level tags across your web page to correspond with those different answers. Find opportunities and create bulleted and numbered lists. This is a big missed opportunity. A lot of people are putting all of their featured snippet resources into just paragraph or an expectation that Google's going to display a paragraph. But there could be times when a bulleted list isn't being displayed by Google, but because you have it and people are engaging with it, it's now preferred. So do keep that in mind. Use bulleted and numbered lists where you can. And like I said before, go ahead and do the markup. Don't depend on it, but definitely use it. Use tables, kind of along the same lines as those bulleted and number lists. Find opportunities to use tables, compare prices, software, or if it's software, there might be specs that you want to compare. If you're a comparison website, this is a great opportunity to show up in lots of featured snippets. Update your content. This is the most important. You need to make sure to have fresh content in order to really compete here. It's not likely that you're going to capture a brand new featured snippet right off the bat unless you have some content that's been updated. And obviously to compete, you need to get onto your pages and start updating your content, make it fresh, try new things. You may see that Google is preferring a list in a featured snippet, so you optimize for the list, but then they end up pulling a competitor's paragraph and you find pieces of that paragraph that are super useful, that are things that you could apply to your page and make it more useful for users, and you'll want to monitor and make those updates, and you'll want to just be constantly changing your content. And typically we do see at about 2 weeks, if you've made certain updates and you're not seeing any changes, it's definitely worth going back to the drawing board and figuring out what else you can change, update, make your content more valuable to the user. I love using TF-IDF analysis, being able to identify terms that are frequently used terms in competitive content, in content displayed for a certain query. It's important to know what what frequency certain terms are being used. This helps support your content overall. It helps in semantic search. It really helps Google be able to identify that your content is actually relevant to not just what the user put in or has queried, but really what they're trying to get at. So definitely use TF-IDF analysis in your optimizations of your content. And that's a general rule, but it'll definitely help with featured snippets. And just the last part in optimizing is rinse and repeat. Like I've mentioned, you'll give it a little bit of time, somewhere in the realm of 5 days to 2 weeks, and try something new, try something different. At the very least, update your content, make it more valuable. Maybe you haven't used a table and it would be worth using a table. Maybe you haven't used a list, and mark that list up. There's always things you can change and update, and find ways to improve user experience on your page. All of these are the many factors that not just help with ranking increases, but help your chances of capturing a featured snippet. In summary, like I said, the new organic summit is rank 0. It's that coveted number 0 spot. And just kind of some takeaways and some reminders to kind of in priority is identify your ranking keywords. So keywords you're ranking for, start there. And like has been mentioned for a long time, start with those that you're ranking for in the first 10 positions. Those are your best chances of actually capturing a featured snippet. So then identify the types of featured snippets, know which ones Google's preferring to begin with, and then maybe change things up through future optimizations. Maybe a table or a list is actually going to be more valuable to a user, and Google will recognize that. Find all of your opportunities to begin with, and then you can filter by maybe recognized snippets. So if Google's already recognizing that your content is valuable enough to have a larger snippet in search, then you already know you're kind of in that fight, and it's time to start making some more aggressive changes and more frequent changes at that point, because you know Google's already recognizing your landing page or your page for or your content for that specific query. So at that point, you're ready to optimize and make the on-page changes. Markups part of that, but definitely just look at improving your content, answering questions better, maybe getting more concise in certain areas and more robust in other areas. You're going to want to monitor. You're going to want to look at what's happening with competitors. Is this affecting your competitors? Is this affecting you? Is Google doing all sorts of new updates that change what you're going to need to do to your page? Did you have the paragraph and the image, and then all of a sudden now you don't have the image in your featured snippet? These are all things you need to monitor daily in order to stay in the game. And then make your changes. Just like with any part of creating content for users in organic search, change is super important. Updates are super important. Fresh content is always super important. So just as with those things, with featured snippets, it's just as important. And that's all I got.
Awesome. Thank you, Cole. Stay on the line. Let's answer a couple of questions. We have time for, let me see, probably 2-3 questions. Okay, question number 1. I may not be currently on page 1, but while I'm working towards that, what can I prepare so once there, I have the best chance?
Yeah, that's a great question. As I mentioned in the presentation, there's the higher opportunities, or the kind of the low-hanging fruit, are ones we're already ranking for, but we can already prepare for maybe we don't even have a landing page that's ranking for a certain keyword that we know is what our target market is looking for. So go ahead and create the page. If it's already created, go ahead and start making those optimizations. I only suggest going for ones that we're ranking in the top 10 results first, because those have the quicker opportunities. But at some point, you're going to be at the next level and you're going to be looking for the next opportunity. So go ahead and make those same optimizations I've talked about already on your page. Go ahead and do the same competitive research on those that you see are competing on the first page for that featured snippet, for whatever type of featured snippet it is, and make those optimizations to your page already.
Perfect. What's the fastest way to get to page 1 in your expert opinion?
The fastest is doing all the things that I've talked about in the summary. The quickest way you can get there is having fresh, updated content, valuable content to users. Of course, there's off-page ways to improve. You know, you can promote your pages, your content on other sites and really get people using it and starting to engage with it. That will help you get to that first page a lot more rapidly. But those on-page changes are number one. Those need to happen first, and those tend to have the biggest impact on getting to the first page right away.
Awesome. And last question, do you think featured snippets will go away?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's been research lately, or it's evident that Google's doing all sorts of tests. They've recently done a test where, and they currently say it's a test, but it could be an update where if you get the featured snippet, you no longer have the organic results. It's happening in certain SERPs. It's really just it's been confirmed by different people over at Google that it's just in being tested. But if that's the case, then once you have the featured snippet and you lose an organic result, a regular organic result, now instead of getting maybe position 1 and position 0, you're only position 0. That could affect the amount of traffic. That could also affect click-through rate. So there's a lot of things being tested right now to possibly change up how featured snippet results are presented in the regular results. I personally don't feel that Google will take away those results because in a featured snippet they may display a list, but the paragraph that shows up in the snippet in the regular organic result is just as valuable or valuable to the same market kind of in a different way. So I personally don't feel like that will stick, but it may. But featured snippets overall are, in my opinion, here to stay. They just present such a quick answer, a quick opportunity to either delve further into research or get what you need right away. Maybe you just want to know how tall Donald Trump is, and you can get that answer right away. With how much people want, how much voice is being used in search right now, I don't see featured snippets going away in the long run.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, the whole Google machine is about user experience, and if users want answers quicker, that's what Google is going to serve up. So I would have to echo that.
Yeah.
Perfect. That is the time that we have today. Thank you, Cole, again, for going through that rank 0 and showing us how to get your content showing up in featured snippets. As a reminder, you'll receive an email with a link to this recording. We've been recording this and the deck by end of day tomorrow. Now, on our next webinar, we'll be focusing on heat mapping and turning user metrics into actionable CRO data. And this one's going to be really cool. So if you're not familiar with heat mapping and user tracking, you can improve online revenue because you're turning that into a science, which, up until this point has been more of an art. You're assuming a lot of things about the buyer's journey. But with heat mapping and user tracking, you're able to figure out where people are going, where they're bouncing away, where they're dropping off, and fill those gaps with a very data-driven science perspective. In this webinar, we'll show you how to track the right user metrics and then turn that data into actionable sales funnel improvements, which thereby improves revenue. And this one is taught by campaign manager Cameron Johnson. And this one's scheduled for July 11th. I will drop a link right now into where you can register that now, and that will also be as part of the follow-up email coming to you. So let me send that to everyone right now. All right, that should be showing up. So feel free to register that for that one today, and we'll be holding that on July 11th. Now, that's it for now. Thank you for joining us today. We hope this was super helpful. Questions, comments, concerns, as always, hit us up at 97th floor. And until next time, cheers. Have a wonderful day.